You ever get that feeling that the future we were all promised never quite showed up? Well, here's the thing. In one very specific, very fast way, it actually did arrive. And then we just let it slip away.
Just imagine this for a second. It's 1976. You can fly from London to New York in 3 hours and 20 minutes. That's it. You could have breakfast in London and, thanks to the time difference, literally land in New York before you took off. How crazy is that?
So that brings us to the big, obvious question, right? Why on earth did we get slower? After half a century of what we call progress, why does that exact same flight today take more than double the time? It just doesn't make sense. To get the answer, we have to go back, way back to an idea so bold, so unbelievably ambitious, that it could only be called the supersonic dream. Now, this wasn't some startup with a cool idea. In 1962, the governments of Britain and France signed a formal treaty, not business contract, a treaty, like countries do after a war. This thing was a matter of national pride, a technological moonshot that took more than a decade of work just to get the first prototype off the ground. And the engineering problems they had to solve were, they were just staggering. At twice the speed of sound, the air friction was so intense that the plane's metal skin would heat up and the entire fuselage would physically stretch by almost a foot in midair. They had to invent new kinds of metal, design that iconic delta wing, and even create that famous droop nose that tilted down just so the pilots could see the runway to land.
And all that incredible ambition, it kicked off what was, without a doubt, the golden age of air travel. For 27 amazing years, Concorde was it, the absolute peak of speed, of luxury, of what we could achieve in the skies.
Passengers would sit back with their champagne and watch a display at the front of the cabin tick past Mach 1, the sound barrier, and then just keep on climbing all the way to Mach 2. And the craziest part, you felt almost nothing. You were literally flying faster than a rifle bullet.
Concorde flew at 60,000 feet. That's so high, you're practically on the edge of space. The sky outside your window wasn't just blue, it was a deep, dark navy. And from your seat, you could actually see the gentle curve of our planet. No commercial passenger has flown that high or that fast ever since. So, this wasn't just a plane, it was a total cultural icon. The passenger list was basically a who's who of that era. In fact, there's a famous story about Phil Collins using the Concorde to play at both the London and Philadelphia Live Aid concerts on the exact same day, a feat that is just physically impossible today. Okay, so if it was so incredible, why isn't it still tearing across the sky right now? Well, most people think they know the answer to that, but the real story of its downfall is, well, it's a lot more complicated. It wasn't just about one tragic event. Look, the Air France crash in 2000 was a terrible, terrible tragedy. There's no question about that. But the hard truth is, Concorde's fate was pretty much already sealed by then. The plane was already dying a slow, quiet, economic death. It really all came down to an equation that it could never win. Concorde was a marvel of speed, but it was an economic disaster. It could only carry about 100 passengers. At the same time, it burned about 20 times more fuel per seat than a Boeing 747, which could haul over 400 people. The math just never, ever worked. On top of that, a perfect storm of other problems was hitting all at once. That famous sonic boom? It meant Concorde was banned from flying supersonic over land, which really limited it to just a few routes over the ocean. Its engines were deafeningly loud, so airports started putting more and more restrictions on it. And this is the big one. The entire airline industry decided to go in the opposite direction. They chose carrying more people for less money over pure speed. Then, after 9/11, high-end business travel, which was Concorde's entire reason for being, it just completely collapsed. And that brings us to the legacy of this amazing machine. It's the story of a future that we actually built, we had it in our hands, and then we, as a society, just collectively decided to forget it. The comparison is just brutal when you look at it. 50 years ago, London to New York was a 3.5-hour trip. Today, half a century of supposed progress later, it takes twice as long. In this one very specific area, we have actively gone backwards. And let's be super clear.
It's not because we lost the blueprints or forgot how to do it. We could absolutely build a new supersonic jet today, probably a much better one, to be honest. We still have the technology. What we seem to have lost is the will to prioritize breathtaking speed above all else.
We chose cheaper over faster. We chose volume over velocity. So the next time you're on a 7-hour flight, settling into your seat, just take a second and remember this. We solved this problem 50 years ago. And then we forgot.